Welcome to a new episode from EduExcel. This is Nirmala Thakur. I have already brought a book based on Lala Lajpat Rai's thoughts on education, and in this book, I will share some of our concerns. The book is very attractively titled Who is Raising Your Children? And I hope the presentation in this episode will help you in understanding the contents and you will be attracted to read the book. I think it's a must read book for all educators. Who is Raising Your Children? This book has been written by Rajiv Malhotra and Vijaya Viswanathan. Something about the authors. Rajiv Malhotra is a best-selling author of 14 major critically acclaimed path-breaking books, known for challenging the established wisdom in fields as diverse and inspiring as civilizations, cross-cultural encounters, consciousness, and artificial intelligence. He combines his journey as a technocrat, an entrepreneur, and spiritual explorer, formulating new frameworks and paradigms to bring ancient knowledge into the present context. His writings impact intellectuals worldwide and provoke our comfort zones. Over the past half century, Malhotra's work has straddled across the USA and India, and he is equally at home in both places. He heads the Princeton based Infinity Foundation. Vijaya Viswanathan, a mechanical engineer with an MBA from Wharton, had a successful international corporate career in manufacturing and finance. Her focus shifted to education while homeschooling her children, where she gained profound insights into the relevance of Indic knowledge systems in contemporary education. As the co founder of Agastya Gurukulam, she leads initiatives centered on curriculum development, pedagogy, and mentoring based on Bharatiya civilization. A student of Vedanta under Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Vijaya also serves on the board of the Infinity Foundation in advancing its mission. The image on the front cover of this book shows the malevolent snake Agasura, an Asura demon general who is committed to adharma, violation of dharma. This is a tale from Bhagavata Purana. Driven by his malice, Agasura had devised a sinister plan to wipe out the innocent children of the holy city of Vrindavan in Mathura, where Lord Krishna is believed to have spent his early years. Agasura assumed the form of an 8-mile long serpent, disguising his open mouth to look like the entrance of a mysterious cavern in a mountain. His enticing trap appeared like a serene path through a beautiful meadow. His open mouth awaited the unsuspecting children. The children were engrossed in play, mimicking peacocks and chasing bird shadows. When they came upon Agasura's mouth, they assumed it to be a mountain cave. Lured by the beautiful path, the children entered without hesitation, unaware of the impending doom. Elders and parents, who typically keep a watchful eye, were absent. Agasura intended to close his jaws and destroy them from within, exploiting their joyful innocence as bait to suffocate and kill them. The Bhagavata Puran describes the dramatic event as follows. His lower lip rested on the surface of the earth, and his upper lip was touching the clouds in the sky. The borders of his mouth resembled the sides of a big cave in a mountain, and the middle of the mouth was as dark as possible. His tongue resembled a broad traffic way, his breath was like a warm wind, and his eyes blazed like fire. The children assumed it must be a beautiful scenic spot of Vrindavan. Later, when they recognized it to look like a giant snake, they remained unafraid and assumed it to be a statue made in the shape of a great snake for his enjoyment. Seeing this, Lord Krishna came to their rescue and killed Agasura. Agasura's story is a powerful metaphor for the hidden dangers and deceptive threats that the children and the youth of our country face. Just as Agasura disguised his lethal intent with an innocent and exciting appearance, many dark forces are currently cloaked in benign forms. This book urges the reader to look beyond the surface and recognize the true nature of what we are being told. Today, the metaphorical Agasura has returned to destroy our children. We will show that under the garb of nice sounding ideals like social emotional learning, cell, and sex education, claiming to protect children from risks, the real effect is sinister. Children are being sexualized at very early ages to create chaos and confusion in their minds and being denied the practical education in reading and maths that would ready them for careers. This is how they can be controlled, exploited, and ultimately destroyed. These are not isolated trends, but are being driven top down by global forces we deem necessary to expose. Much like Agasura's enticing lure, the path towards destruction is long and winding, going through promises of preparing children for global citizenship and attractions of an inclusive society. Agasura is operating at the highest levels of power and influence in society and governance. Woke ideology is the mechanism to draw Indian children into its mouth through various institutional partners that facilitate easy access to the cavern. This book is an early warning to prepare India proactively with a preemptive response. We see systematic programs across the country to replicate the American education model. The introduction comprises of 70 plus pages in which a lot of topics are discussed. Being how the children are being recruited to break up India. The paradoxes of emerging world disorder has been discussed. Globalists and the game board in the name of Sustainability Development Goals 2030 and do we want a global world order, redistribution of wealth, identity warfare, then comparing India's and China's approach in global citizenship, and the new India force four-pronged attack on society. Uh, then the Americans' pushback against woke has been discussed, artificially conflating issues, impact on the family structure, society, and country. But the most provocative questions for the readers which has been raised are as follows. Question number one, Islamophobia. Question 2, Wokeism, Censorship and Racism. Question number 3, Identity Branding. Question 4, Revolution and Revenge. Question 5, Sovereignty. Question 6, Parental Authority. Question 7, Gender, Biology versus Constructivism. Question 8, Sexualization. Question 9, Childhood Innocence. Question 10, Rewiring Children. The book is divided into three parts. Part 1 talks about the global game board and India. Then part 2 is about breeding a troubled generation. And part 3 is learning from India's past education system. Part 1 is comprised of many subtopics like the classroom as an ideological battlefield, the United Nations mandates on sex education, the rot in American education, repurposing Gandhi for Marxism, International Planned Parenthood Federation, and A Tale of Two Provinces, Jharkhand, India, and Gansu, China. Part 2 comprises of Breeding a Troubled Nation. Under this, Challenges Facing Indian Educators, India's public-private partnerships for comprehensive sexuality education and social emotional learning, institutionalizing transgenderism, Niti Aayog as the gatekeeper, a critic of India's woke education, and the part 3 of the book, which is about learning from India's past education system. It comprises topics like the Vedic philosophy of education, the Indian education before the British Empire, and an example for Indian education today. The author, when he talks about generation breaking India, the brainwashed generation, he talks about his other books also. Uh, when Rajiv Malhotra first wrote about Breaking India Syndrome 1.0, he exposed how the rural poor were being targeted by Marxist ideas on the one hand and the evangelizing Christian missionary on the other. Rural areas were targeted by NGOs to create a grassroots uprising through Maoists and Christian missionaries. Then their subsequent book, Snakes in the Ganga, Breaking India 2.0, discussed what we referred as to Breaking India 2.0. The book exposed how India's urban elite, the corporate honchos, leveraging their connections with elite institutions like Harvard University, had targeted the highest levels of social, political, economic, and government institutions and weaponized them to dismantle Indian society. The present volume goes into much deeper level that we call Breaking India 3.0. Here we expose a project that co-opts senior architects of India in the government, uses them as elite sepoys to thoroughly brainwash the young generation and decouple them from the nation, their families and their cultural heritage. This is a continuation of the Breaking India project. While Breaking India 1.0 was bottoms up and Breaking India 2.0 was top down, Breaking India 3.0 is inside out, thus dismantling India from within by turning its children into agents of self destruction. An army of foot soldiers is being produced in India to work like termites and destroy from within. In Breaking India 1.0, missionaries and Marxists resorted to subterfuge and inculturation to indoctrinate the hapless public. Breaking India 2.0 infiltrated the core of Indian industry and its elites, producing an army of white collar commissaries who are foot soldiers in all our institutions through departments like DEI and uses indexes of performance that are defined and managed by foreign nexuses. Breaking India 3.0 is using our children against us, indoctrinating them to complete the Break in India project. There is a two pronged attack to turn children into angry generation fighting against their very civilization and country, make them uncompetitive compared to global benchmarks compared with China, South Korea, etc., especially in science, technology, engineering, uh, and mathematics, that is STEM. This creates a massive population of unemployable youth. Over-sexualize them by introducing desire-affirming sex education and installing sexual rights as a UN mandate being implemented by the Indian government and its affiliate institutions. The UN's SDG 2030 agenda requires countries to commit to teaching children to be worthy of global citizenship under SDG 4.7. Hence, GCE has become a mainstay in curriculum frameworks. The international standards also differentiate between global citizenship consciousness and global citizenship competence. The former is about having a cosmopolitan attitude combined with humanistic principles, whereas the latter is about activism and teaches each child to take on the world's problem as their own. The latter is taken to the extreme of having guilt, wiping away one's self identity, and questioning the validity of sovereignty. In summary, there are two problems with this approach to global citizenship. Firstly, we disagree ideologically. Global citizenship is not about being aware of the world's problems and appreciating diverse cultures and heritages, but rather it is pushing the monoculture of woke based social justice ideologies on gender, sexuality, and racism. Secondly, it is a call to rebel rousing. It drafts the youth into the army of useful idiots for a Marxist project to dismantle the existing power structure and usher in a new one. As a result of Niti Aayog's glaring error in adopting the global citizenship competence variety by 2030, India must ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, which includes social justice causes, human rights, and gender equality. In other words, India has committed itself to training all its young people to be compliant and think of themselves not primarily as citizens of Bharat, but to instead align them with the UN on social, economic, and environmental issues of the world and teach them to use advocacy to solve these problems. We propose that the education policy must first develop children as solid citizens of Bharat and only then learn to become global citizens as ambassadors of Bharat. China refuses to capitulate on global citizenship. China has a clear vision of preparing its future generation in line with its global ambitions. President Xi Jinping set the stage at the highest level when he shared his vision as defined by Chinese frameworks for solving global problems, fostering a new type of international relations, and using the Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) as a practical platform. He presented an assertive foreign policy with the three pronged approach to solving global problems the Chinese way. Number one, Global Development Initiative (GDI) or Belt and Road Initiative presented to the UN in 2021 with over 100 countries supporting it. Number two, Global Security Initiative (GSI) presented to the Goa Forum Asia Davos in 2022. Number three, Global Civilization Initiative (GCI) launched in 2023 at the CPC in dialogue with the World Political Parties High Level Meeting. These doctrines comprise a well conceived theoretical frameworks for China's version to build a world of lasting peace through dialogue and consultation, a world of common security for all through joint efforts, a world of common prosperity through win win cooperation, and open and inclusive world through exchanges and mutual learning, and to make our world clean and beautiful by pursuing green and low carbon development. It pursues the common values of humanity, follows the fundamental path of fostering a new type of international relations, and uses the Belt and Road Initiative as a practical platform. Clearly, China does not support the UN's definition of global citizenship that India has blindly adopted. This then determines the way children are to be educated. In China's case, patriotic to their country, but in India's case, the allegiance is to global interests overriding India's national interests. The Chinese neither teach the UN's version of global citizenship to its children, nor does its education policy documents include it. The term civic and citizenship education is not commonly used in China's educational policies and documents. Related terms in the Chinese context mainly include moral education and political education. The curriculum in China's secondary schools has a consistent theme of patriotism and identity. The trajectory of Chinese education in the past century is summarized in the table below. China believes it is the center of the universe, hence, none of the above stages in its development espouse loyalty to so called globalism. In a recent address to Chinese children, President Jinping laid down his priorities on education. Number one, patriotism. Serve the nation with absolute loyalty, calling students to break new grounds for China. Number two, focus on science and aesthetics. Encouraged passion in science exploration, encouraging them to stay hungry for knowledge and foster their scientific spirit, importance of knowledge and aesthetic education in shaping a beautiful mind. Number three, strength, physical fitness and wellness. Number four, industriousness. Life is built on hard work. Through work, you will not only sow the seeds of hope and reap the fruits, but also temper your will and improve yourselves. Chinese scholars view global citizenship rooted in Chinese identity quite differently than the woke ideas that India so eagerly embraces. Chinese scholars tend to define global citizenship from a multidimensional identity framework with an emphasis on the fundamental status of national identity while expanding the global domain. Zhou, 2008, refers to global citizen as an international perspective on the premise of the establishment of national identity. Deep research has gone in while writing this book. The readers, when they go through each and every chapter, they will understand the effort which has gone in. Uh, the conclusion or the way forward, as the author says in this book, we have offered a Purva Paksha on the education system that India has adopted while simultaneously giving the reader a glimpse of what is possible. It is up to us as stakeholders to demand more from the government, look for alternate sources to educate our children, and feverishly resurrect the dying breed of civilizational knowledge to revive that vidya or that knowledge which liberates. The National Education Policy 2020 states some obvious purposes of education, such as providing a holistic education, securing good jobs and skill development to create human capital for a growing economy, reliance on meaningless rote learning as opposed to developing thinking skills, discovering a child's passion, achieving equity, inclusion, and education for all, teaching young children how to think rather than what to think, imparting soft skills like social skills, not just pragmatic hard skills, teaching children the love for learning, making children the agents of social change. Our critic shows that India's NEP has failed in those areas that relate to civilization matters. The NEP represents a missed opportunity for India to address fundamental questions about the purpose of education. Often these feel good statements lack substance and depth and serve as superficial pathways to import Western paradigms. The West has developed models to address educational issues based on its worldview along with globalist agendas. Sadly, India has blindly adopted these models wholesale without a critical assessment to evaluate their effectiveness in the context of India's distinct civilizational value. Furthermore, even a basic assessment of how these models have performed in the USA reveals significant shortcomings. The American education system has lost meritocracy and it champions social divisiveness. Meanwhile, China has catapulted as the meritocratic leader on the world stage. China excels in knowledge generation and distribution. The American system instills victim orientation in a child's mind and then glorifies the feeling of victimhood, teaches children that feelings are indeed facts and meritocracy and virtues like hard work and punctuality are oppressive. A critical evaluation or Purva Paksha would have revealed the unsuitability and irrelevance of these models for India as we have shown, before crafting the NEP 2020, the Education Ministry should have conducted a thorough review of the Western education system like the one offered in this book. Moreover, India should address education based on Vedic frameworks. What is the Vedic view on environmentalism, equality, soft skills, citizenship, social justice, etc.? That should have been discussed in position papers and policy statements by including inputs from a variety of scholars before developing NEP. The present NEP 2020 must be rewritten in certain areas that concern the issues addressed in this book, and this should be premised on an understanding of Vedic social sciences. The Western social contract model depends on agreement among egos, but this cannot succeed in establishing sustainable equilibrium. Woke is a response to the ego's difference anxiety, turning it into reverse hatred or identity camps or cancelling others. Because the ego is heavily burdened with toxic conditioning, samskaras, it changes its game at different life stages. One jumps around through different kinds of ambitions, both individual and family, various forms of indulgence and pastimes, eventually ending up in old age without purpose. A precious lifetime is wasted fighting the latest fires and competing with others. The fight flight response never produces any enduring contentment. The Vedic approach sees difference as being inherent in every aspect of the cosmos. It is not a problem to be managed with blame or the oppressor oppressed dialectic. Differences should not be tolerated but mutually respected, celebrated, and experienced as Bhagwan's Leela or beauty. One must first gain insight into why such a life is meaningless and transform oneself by cultivating a positive, healthy ego aligned with cosmic principles. Unfortunately, the UN Sustainable Development Goals do not begin with individual yoga to advance humankind's consciousness. They are entirely a top down approach to social contracts and enforcing them using carrots and sticks approach. To build a robust national education policy rooted in Vedic civilization, India's policymakers, educators, parents, and others concerned must do the following: stop blindly complying with the UN's SDGs 2030 in matters related to education. Instead, it should follow China's example of paying lip service to SDGs while adapting them to fit into the nation's specific civilization metrics. Stop sell from MGIEP and other organizations, Global Citizenship Education, and CSC programs across the country, pending a comprehensive reassessment of the underlying philosophy and its relationship with Vedic principles. Number three, focus on literacy and numeracy as a first step. Number four, do not allow NGOs to collect data on students. Number five, prohibit private actors from providing sex education or sell online or in person with their content. Number six, do not allow foreign funded or influenced NGOs to train teachers, provide content, or anything that is related to the core content and pedagogy in education. 7. While CBE educations can indeed improve access to education for the poor and the marginalized, these programs should be purely academic and merit oriented while being self paced. Number 8. Develop specific programs to identify and groom the top 10% of the country's talent in all fields. Number 9. Formulate strict policies to restrict children's use of social media. The Indian knowledge systems are designed to align humanity in harmony with the planet, and such an alignment is inherently sustainable. This alignment is yajna. It is imperative to educate our young generation with this lens to guide the present world in crisis. India should offer leadership and guidance in this regard through the revival of the timeless wisdom of the rishis. This holistic approach has its core environmental sustainability, social harmony, and spiritual well being. By tapping into the relevant principles of Indian knowledge systems, India can pave the way for innovative solutions that the world desperately needs. This should be the path for India to reclaim its historic role as a Vishwaguru, or world leader in education, knowledge production, and knowledge dissemination. However, this requires all stakeholders to re-evaluate the current policies that are dangerous to India's sovereignty, stability, and survival. The front cover shows the giant snake Agasura from the Bhagavata Purana disguised his open mouth as an attractive cave to ensnare the children of Vrindavan. This metaphor highlights the dangers hidden in Western education models that are being imported into India, enduring parents and children alike. The book explains these dangers systematically. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030 is the framework being used by globalists to influence education policies worldwide. It embeds ideological agendas like global citizenship, pleasure based sex education, sexual rights for children, and social justice. China and Russia do not adopt these global education trends blindly, instead, focus on education based on their own civilizational perspective. India is impetuously following Western frameworks without critical evaluation. Its policies adopt Western ideologies built into comprehensive sexual education, social emotional learning, and global citizenship education. The UN, NGOs, and public private partnerships have implemented these ideologies into Indian education, prioritizing ideological indoctrination and over academic rigor and traditional values. The book compels Indian policymakers to study the failures of the K 12 education system in the USA as a warning against replicating American education models. The book seeks to convince Indian educators to resist foreign power pressure and realign the education models with Bharatiya heritage values and the best interests of India's children. The three famous personalities who have written about this book are Peter Boghossian, founding faculty advisor, University of Austin. He says that you have done it again, a masterful and bold exposé of the disturbing shift in India's education system and its steady march towards an American style agenda driven model. This hard hitting book reveals how her global woke agenda is infiltrating classrooms worldwide, from the USA to India. American readers may be shocked to discover that UNESCO's India base is producing content for programs like social emotional learning with far reaching influence. With piercing analysis and vivid examples, the author exposes how NGO exploit systemic flaws under the guise of public private partnerships. Essential reading for anyone who cares about the future of education, both at home and globally. Next comes from Swaminathan Gurumurthy, the chairman of Vivekanand International Foundation, New Delhi. He says this pioneering work is a must read for Indian government policymakers, administrators, and the think tank of Niti Aayog concerned with education, culture, and family welfare, and above all, with the very idea of India. Madhu Purnima Kishwar, the founder of Manushi, says an urgent wake up call exposing the hidden threats to India's future generation. This book is urgent reading for parents, educators, and policymakers, offering crucial insights to shape educational policies that are civilizationally aligned with our diverse nation. Thank you for being with me. I will be back again with another book review shortly. Kindly like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.